it's really been wonderful because it's put to the forefront all staff across the library to think about, who are the communities that they serve and how can they understand them better and how can they meet their needs better. And so there's been a lot of research efforts to get at that, but also evaluating, how do we bring our communities in a little bit sooner or ask them how to make these services better. So that is something that we're seeing across the library in order to improve the services and the products that we deliver.
Hello, and welcome to GovCast, the show where government and industry leaders share how they're transforming public sector technology. I'm Sylvia Oakland, staff writer at GovCIO Media and Research, and your host today. 3 years ago, the White House tasked federal agencies with creating a better digital experience for all Americans with the Executive Order 14058. The Office of Management and Budget issued M23-07, a reinforcer of the 2019 memo, requiring agencies to go paperless by June 30th of 2024. The National Archives and Records Administration, or NARA, and the Library of Congress together host billions of files. Natalie Buda Smith, Director of Digital Strategy at the Library of Congress, who you heard at the start of this episode, helps the library through its modernization plan. Through this, the library aims to expand access, create better relationships with customers, and strengthen their workforce. Jill Reilly, Digital Engagement Director in the Office of Innovation at NARA, also works to digitize files and find new ways to improve digitization. In April 2024, NARA opened a mass digitization center in Maryland. Previously, files were only able to be viewed in person, and this allows anyone to view the photos, videos, and more on NARA's digital catalog.
We've greatly increased that amount of digitized content, and we've grown to more than 326 million pages available in the catalog. And we continue to focus more and more also on born digital content and providing access to that via the catalog as well. We have had recent directives and new regulations related to agencies transferring digital only with just very few exceptions. And so we've been working to continue to bring that born digital content in and begin to prepare to provide new customer-centric interfaces for accessing those born digital records through the catalog as well. And I wanted to chime in too about Natalie's point about customer engagement and analyzing that customer feedback and input and usability studies and user experience into this work. I agree. It's really, really important to what digital transformation looks like to streamline things internally at the archives and then also streamlining those user paths for customers so that they can find the information that they're looking for more easily, more readily online. And so like Natalie is saying, there's really an internal and an external component that work together to really bring that digital transformation about.
Digitization also includes digitizing born digital materials. Buda Smith pointed out technologies like VHS tapes and floppy disks were born digital for their respective time period. So, in addition to traditional digitization of papers, NARA and the Library of Congress are tasked with digitizing outdated media formats.
We have a team of experts here, as I know NARA does as well, and they're really keeping track of how do we maintain these obsolete formats in a way that doesn't lock us out of this wonderful content that may have been born digital, but was created in the 80s or the 90s or the early 2000s, because formats and operating systems change all the time. The emulation of those operating systems is really needed to get access to those materials as they were created. So if you can imagine, if you think about like the DOS operating system, if there was, let's say, a famous scientist, for example, we may have received all of his files, for example, or all of her files, for example, and to retrieve them out of an old operating system is something that is of great priority here. And we do have experts that are focused on that. So that's one of the biggest differences between born digital and physical materials, but we are seeing an acceleration of born digital materials, and it just keeps on growing and growing and growing. So it is fascinating to see the amount of processing that we're doing in this born digital age.
The content types don't stop there, however. As NARA collects records from other federal agencies, Reilly also receives a variety of file types. She said the most common are PDFs, spreadsheets, and other types of datasets. Digitizing and uploading these files increase access for the public, and NARA is taking it another step further with prioritizing the inclusion of metadata, which will make searching significantly easier.
We have a lot of audiovisual materials and a large number of born digital photographs that are already available in the catalog have been coming in. We're also getting content that's related to geospatial and design documents, such as architectural drawings, plans, and also a lot of content that is web related. So we're starting to get content that's social media, email, websites, and web archive content. So there's a broad range. We bring these in right now and preserve them, and we're continuing to look at ways to really build on that user experience. Right now, a lot of times we have the descriptive metadata in the catalog, and those data sets are available for download, but we'd be interested in continuing to expand on ways that you could interact with them through the catalog interface as well. And we've also been making a lot of our content available and extracted text available through the API, the application programming interface that we have for the catalog. And it's been a great resource for digital scholars looking to access both the content, digital content, and also metadata.
Metadata becomes increasingly important in the digitization space. Metadata is defined as data about data. In other words, metadata is a way to know things about a piece of information to help us find it later. Books in a library, for example, have data like the author, the title, the ISBN, etc. Metadata for a book would be things like the subjects it covers and even what the book looks like and how much it weighs. Metadata can help everyone find what they're looking for, especially those with accessibility issues who may need a certain format for their screen readers or require alternative text for images.
We've worked to really continue to grow the OCR coverage, the optical character recognition coverage, and extracted text from documents. And we have now made it so that whenever that's available in the catalog, it displays so a screen reader can pick it up more easily. And we added new features this year in the catalog to highlight what page your keywords are appearing on within long multi-page documents and other records. And so besides it just being a visual cue that the page is highlighted, we made sure that we had an accessible, universally accessible interface so that there's also a text-driven way to navigate to jump to those pages in those documents and see that part of the extracted text. So that's just one example of recent work that we did with our developers and designers to deliver something that's an inclusive design.
We do have dedicated digital accessibility specialists, and these experts are phenomenal at going throughout our library and with library staff and advocating for ways that you can increase accessibility to our materials, to our applications, to even PowerPoints or blog posts, because those things are very important to make sure that we try every way that we can in order to increase our accessibility. So we have a team here that actually is advocating and works with staff to really train them and bring them up. And one of our several of our modernization efforts, but in one of our modernizations efforts in particular, we have a digital accessibility specialist that is there from the design of the system instead of just scanning for compliance. I think a lot of federal agencies have moved forward with this best practice, but we're actually implementing this in a lot of our modernization efforts where we bring digital accessibility in at the beginning versus waiting to the end where at times there's a lot of technical debt that's built up once you do test for compliance, and then it's a lot harder to make change. So that is a approach that has really been successful to us. And then we do have a service unit here at the library, which is the Library for the Blind and Print Disabled. And they have, since the 1930s, have been really delivering wonderful services to these communities with Braille, Braille books in public libraries across the nation, but also a very successful program called BARD, which gives those that qualify access to other materials. And so that group is really a leader in how do you drive accessibility for specific communities that need these or want the services and that we should serve. And they often share their success across the library.
Countering cyber threats is the national security issue of our lifetime.
We have approximately 1 billion attempts on our systems and data every month.
War moves fast and requires a great deal of adaptation live, right?
We want to make sure that our warfighter has the best capability on the ground and that they're protected.
We need to start delivering secure, resilient, survivable mission performance.
Underlying all of that has to be the urgency and the culture of DevSecOps.
Getting the right frameworks in place to be adaptable at speed, because that's the speed at which our adversaries are working.
It's going to be a lot of work, and we're going to need a lot of help to get it across the finish line.
And know that I am playing a part in keeping my friends, family, and community safe.
Join GovCIO Media and Research on February 27th for the 2025 Defense IT Summit. Hear from top federal and industry leaders about IT modernization's impact on the future of defense. Learn more and reserve your spot today at govciomedia.com/events. Artificial intelligence has played a role in NARA and the library's digitization journey. The optical character recognition, or OCR as Reilly mentioned earlier, can identify words, symbols, and numbers within a photo, similar to when you scan a receipt or document with your phone. From there, NARA and the library can convert that information into a text file. This makes it easier to find when searching in databases.
It gives us a lot more flexibility, not only with the discovery or the preservation of digital or digitized objects, but we can use it with other types of AI, not just computer vision. So that's one that is kind of the most used. And then we're using AI for generative metadata, which is similar, but whereas we have AI looking at an object and then creating metadata that is from that object automatically. Again, with all of our uses of AI, humans in the loop is of most importance because quality is of most importance to us. Authenticity is extremely important. And so we've found with almost all of our uses that you still need that quality control, that quality check, someone to validate, verify, and even augment as needed. So many of our approaches has humans in the loop in order, even if it's in production, because that is very important to our organizations.
It's really saving them time and effort, and then they can really focus on expanding access by adding that enhancement and improvement to it. And we are looking at collaborations related to AI vision, like Natalie mentioned as well, to identify the subjects of images. There's often a caption, but it may not capture what the image is literally of, but it provides context and what are ways we can use AI tools to combine that. We're also exploring AI use cases related to AI assisted description. So having the AI work with Born Digital reports from the 2000s and see if it can summarize the document, identify its title, its publication date, assign some tags based on its summarization as well. And so we've been evaluating and comparing tools for use cases like that. We've also been, as Natalie was mentioning too, extracting people, places, names, events out of the OCR text of even handwritten documents to then start to experiment with semantic search and make connections between documents and identify either individuals or events, even when the keywords aren't explicitly there, and to map that to concepts to really enhance access. And I think that's the future of where search is going to be going. And I think that we really want to be mindful as cultural institutions to still have transparency there with the sources of the data. And I think that our customers are definitely open to enhanced experiences, but they really value when what's AI generated is identified as such. And it helps again build that trust and show, that we have that responsible use of AI in mind.
With great amount of data comes great responsibility, and it isn't one that the library or NARA take lightly. While Buda Smith and Reilly aren't trained cyber professionals, they do understand that cybersecurity is a responsibility for everyone in their organizations.
So we take metadata. It's utmost the part of what we do. It's very important here. And also, one of our core values at the Library of Congress is that we are trusted. We're a trusted resource. So when we think about data hygiene, when we think about any sort of security, that's the value that drives a lot of that. We are a trusted resource, so we know that our collections need to be secure and they need to be authentic. So we all across the library, people take measures in order to meet that mission and meet that value. And a lot of times we'll be asked, now with AI is a much different world when it comes to data management or applications and access to data and such. And that is very true. The library, just like NARA, we've been managing data for quite a while. So we have a very strong foundation of IT governance and IT security. And so when we're thinking about how do we evaluate AI and whether we should use it or not, we are putting that on top of or in, using our foundation of strong IT governance and security and building off of that. So we're not approaching AI as a whole different type of work. We are looking at those values and how we govern our technology at the library and thinking, okay, how do we augment or how do we shift processes a little bit in order to accommodate these tools? And let's be very thoughtful and responsible with how we do this, because our mission and our values really lead us to needing to be very responsible how we address AI and the data that's either used in AI or the data that comes out of AI.
At the time of recording, NARA is on track to reach 500 million digitized pages by the end of fiscal year 2026. They recently passed the 300 million milestone, and Reilly said by October 2025, the agency should be nearing 400 million. Reilly said keeping pace with this goal will require the continuation of partnerships with agencies and building up the technology infrastructure. And in turn, this will continue to increase their customer experience and employee experience objectives.
I think search and discovery are more and more important when you have this much content to be able to find what you're looking for in the digital archives. And though even when we get to 500 million and then eventually 1 billion pages, NARA has really like 13 billion pages of paper records, and then the born digital content that's coming in as well. And so we are just being very intentional, working with our IT infrastructure folks, our IT security folks, our system engineers to make sure that we're, on a new modernized platform that we launched in 2022 that is really built to scale and perform, and that we're going to be able to keep expanding to keep up with that. And then so important also is really just our users able to find what they're looking for here, because the point is access. And so we're doing a lot of work with our surveys and analyzing the data and looking at the user trends and traffic and really looking to see what we can do to provide the best customer experience and just really transform that online access experience for our users. And so it really comes together in terms of what the impact in the experience is like. And while we're increasing to get more online, because a lot of the feedback that comes in from the survey is that people want more online, and we're continuing to keep working to deliver that. But we need to balance that with making sure that they can find it.
I'll often look at numbers, predictions of what AI, how AI is going to affect us, and increasing the amount of management of data. So we talked about born digital content and the expectations that AI, as we start implementing more and more AI into the workflow that allow federal staff to be more productive, that tends to mean more records, more artifacts, more materials that need to go through these processes to be at NARA or whatever agency is responsible for managing those. And it is awe-inspiring the amount of materials that the federal agency has to process in. So I can't help but smile when I hear Jill speak to those numbers, because it's a very amazing, the work that NARA does, and the work at the library. We manage about 186 petabytes of data, which is quite a lot. And often people know that our organizations manage a lot of data, but when you start to use these numbers with them and you watch their jaws start to drop, it's always an interesting time. And so knowing just the vastness can speak to not only the amount, but also the complexity of the work. So I can't help but smile when I hear those numbers.
From gigabyte to megabyte to terabyte to petabyte and eventually zettabyte, we have lots of data. And that data has to go somewhere. Buda Smith said data management and storage is the next focus area over the next 5 to 10 years. She also is curious about the role of AI in data management and storage.
The library hosts a Designing Storage Architectures conference, which is really fascinating. I've had the honor of it being able to attend for the last couple of years, and it's really bringing both federal and other public sector with private sector to talk about, how are we going to be storing media in the next 5 to 10 years, and there's limits to the current media and the current materials that we use, and is there a way to really think about what is ahead of us in this vast amounts of data that will continue to be generated from AI, helping us be more efficient. So the zettabyte era is starting. And so there are materials we know that are being explored in order to store larger and larger quantities of data. So that's a very exciting field for us at the library, is how do we be a part of that collaboration in order to move forward these new materials and new ways to store even more. So the zettabyte is upon us. And then the other one, and it's so hard to predict what's going to happen in five years or 10 years, but the other one that I'm really excited about is this growing use and interest in spatial intelligence. We, a lot of our exploration has been in large language models and, using language in order to, predict or understand language that we've been using in our acquisition of knowledge or access to knowledge. But there's a lot of really interesting possibilities in spatial intelligence. So for example, the Library of Congress has the largest maps collection in the world. And so that's one of my favorite reading rooms here. If you ever get a chance to come visit, the fascinating objects there. And so what can we do with geolocation? What can we do with spatial knowledge that is quite different than language, the way that we use language in order to communicate and share and store knowledge?
At NARA, we're really interested and excited about ways to really leverage emerging tools in AI and machine learning and other tools related to personalization if users want to opt in, to really increase that customer experience. So a lot of things on the discovery and information retrieval front. I think that this is an area that we'll really be looking to, that aligns with the new strategic goals that NARA has been outlining in its newest strategic plan framework. And it connects to a lot of the points and goals there related to building our digital future and transforming access engagement and elevating service. And so there's a component there about growing our capacity. And Natalie was making those points too about the enormous size of our content and our holdings and collections. And so I think that we're just really being mindful related to what that user experience is going to look like and how can we use these emerging technologies to really elevate that and bring it to a new level. I think that there's great potential for kind of combining these emerging tools with natural language chat search interfaces and semantic searching in the background that will potentially, if a user is going to opt in, be able to start to know them and the kinds of records they're interested in, and make suggestions to them. And I think that there's a lot of potential there that will keep growing in the future.
Thank you for listening to this episode of GovCast. To learn more about the digitization efforts within the federal government, be sure to visit our website and subscribe to our weekly newsletters. Like the conversation you heard today? Great! Rating and reviewing on the platform of your choice helps us tell the stories that matter most to you. For GovCIO Media and Research, I'm Sylvia Oakland. See you next time.